This is Dead Serious, a show about short horror stories worthy of discussion. I'm Dead Pallid, frontman for Coldplay cover band Frigid Game. Today we're taking a look at Coilscrew. Let's get right into it. To begin with, there is a picture to the side that is drawn on college rule paper of, it's on the screen, so look at it. It's hard to describe. Kind of like a bald, dollish thing, kind of like a mannequin made out of screws. Anyway, as a child, I truly adored my grandfather. He was a now rare breed of man, a word spinner, and a brilliant storyteller, whose words would paint vivid images in your head which would stay imprinted in your mind forever. And since I was an infant, his stories seemed magic to me. He told me of far-off places and paradises, cityscapes and great lakes, animals with exotic names which exploded on the tongue like spices. If I try to remember his good stories and close my eyes, I can remember the ideas I heard from him better than most memories I saw with my eyes, even ones from an age as young as that. That's how good he was. So I kind of bulldozed through 3 paragraphs right there, and I think it's because they flow very well, and it gives us a good idea of how well this grandfather could tell stories. I believe that there's questions in my mind about setting things up this way, about talking about someone else being a good storyteller, and there's a little bit of telling at the beginning, but they do start to show with language like cityscapes and Great Lakes and animals with exotic names. So far it's really working for me. But that's a big preamble to get to the story. Maybe not. Let's move on. Now, I've mentioned already that I think he had good stories, which means I inferred some were bad. He told one to me once, not so much of a story, but of a being. I apologize. I'm not even half the storyteller my grandfather was, but here's the basic gist. Okay, so we kind of get some storytelling Johns here, which I think is a good thing to add realism to the story. Again, I judge these stories not as idealized works of fiction, but as stories coming to me that are supposed to be real, and they're supposed to be told by flawed people, so that's good. He told me where he usually did, in front of the grand fireplace, the only thing which made his little house beautiful. He lowered his voice to a sibilant whisper, like dead leaves blowing across the ground in winter, so my mother couldn't hear. She was never present when he told me his stories. She often stayed in the garden or chatted with the neighbors. So this had me Googling the word sibilant, how to pronounce it and what it means. So it means like a hissing sound. I like that. All of this, that's a very short little paragraph, and it has a lot of vivid words, very interesting words, very mood-setting words. I like this. He described how he once had a friend whose passion was for the science of anatomy. He longed for a long time to discover the trick to life, and he'd attempted to do this by combining creatures with before little success. This was disturbing in itself, but this time, my grandfather said, he came to him and said, "I have a new piece," his friend said. It worked this time. I didn't do all of the work. Most of it I found already like this, but still, come and have a look. But mind yourself, it's rather offensive. Maybe the words of his friend were branded into his brain like this. His description was the mine. Good simile, in the words of George Lucas, it rhymes with branding of the words. But there's a little bit clunky grammar here that's bothering me and making my troubles reading even more troublesome. But overall, I feel that this is intriguing me. The idea of this design being offensive, that's a bizarre idea. Also, the idea that he didn't make it all on his own lends credence to the idea that this time he's successful. So it's not just him getting a spark of inspiration. It's more realistically he's stumbling across something. Okay. His friend led him to a metal door, the only metal door in the facility. You'll understand why it's assigned to this room soon, he had assured him. My grandfather described how he'd made to open the handle, and his friend stilled his hand and instead directed his eye to a peek hole in the door. And this is what he saw. Did we get any information about this facility? That's a bizarre thing to be brought up. I feel that needs mentioning before. But anyway, a being, not cowering, but in the middle of the room, awaiting a visitor with relish. It even seemed to be bouncing slightly, he said, staring into the distance and troubled. When he noticed its legs were not there at all, but there was only one huge rusted spring as a base, like a monstrous zebedee? Googling that, apparently it means a gift from God. I'm confused. I'm not even sure that is grammatically correct, but I'm not sure. But I'm also not sure. Its whole torso was made from lattice, different hues of skin sewn crudely together to cover him from groin to head. Its arms were springs, but less rusted and more slender, interlaced with what he perceived to be a network of nerves all the way to the end of its fingers, which were actually hooks, stained red. From rust or blood, he never knew. And its head, oh, the images my mind created of this never left me. A pale ball, bulbous, not humanoid, a long mouth stretching from where its ears would be on a human, but its black ears and eyes were only holes as big as nail heads, and full of needles, like the ones used to pierce flesh or fabric in injections, or sewing protruding from an inch thick, pale pink gum which reflected the light where it's reflected off the coating of saliva. Its teeth were randomly in double line like a shark, he said. I don't know if this is me reading this clumsily or if it's written that way. I always have trouble deciphering that. I think that it's a little bit clumsy. But as I say, that might be working towards its realism. I don't know. But overall, vivid description. I think yes, I think this is working. Because we're kind of getting this story secondhand, things like from rust or blood, he never knew. I think that's effective. If it was more clear and concise, it wouldn't be as effective. And the fact that the grandfather is viewing this from a distance is also adding to the dubiousness of it. I like that. By now, I remember feeling petrified beyond panic, and my child's face must have reflected my feelings. I wonder why, he now grimly continued. Maybe he was too thorough to simply leave the story unfinished. See, there again with the whole, like, my child's face must have reflected my feelings. It makes it sound like he has a child. I know what he means, but it's a little weird to me. Anyway, he told me how he'd pull away from the hole, and at that moment heard a noise like a caw combined with a squawk like a damp cloth on a plate, followed by panting like a dog and noises like the springs of mattresses make. Okay. Like the springs of mattresses make. Okay. His friend had looked abashed for a moment, then said, "Sorry, you've excited dear little Coilscrew. He senses you." He quickened the pace of the tale now. I remember how he said, now suddenly the door started quaking as the Coilscrew began scratching at the door, the noise like rusty springs from the other side of the door. The blood had drained from his friend's face, and he bolted up the corridor, just as the door fell down and had bounded out. Now he, my grandfather, as he betrayed himself, that is, saw the full extent of this thing's ability, bouncing forward only a little after his creator, before instead extending his spring arms and hooking him back by the eye sockets. It proceeded to bite into him as he reeled over him, tiny little pinpricks which seeped blood and left little scratches and drank. So up to this point, the design of Coilscrew has been very pitiful. It's been much more like one of the enemies that you wouldn't actually fight in Silent Hill, just one of the monsters that you come across that's just supposed to be horrifying, that you don't engage in combat with, or something like, or a more apt analogy would be something from a Jan Schwinkmeyer film. It's weird, it's dusty, it's rusted, a combination of organic and synthetic materials, very old-timey. I don't think that this violent scene meshes well with that. And again, we're kind of at a loss for context in which this is actually happening. Something tonally is just off about the violence of this. It doesn't seem like that's what they were building towards, and it's a little bit of a letdown, honestly. And I can already say this story has faults, but I was kind of rooting for it, and I don't like the direction that it's taking right now. About then, it remembered the presence of my grandpa. He looked up at his face, creaking as his neck springs bent and hissed, and then he told me of how he ran and never looked back. A little generic. Now he fully looked at me and told me, "You must remember this story. It's very important. I heard footsteps coming from the front door. For you to remember, because one day you may need to remember some monsters are truly real, my dear." And at that moment, my mother walked in. She saw me, tiny face rigid in terror, and my grandpa's face, and heard his words, and at that moment dived on him and began shaking his shoulders. "Have you been telling her that goddamn story, Pa? I told you never to tell a child of this family that again. You disturb her like you disturbed Katie, and you know what happened to her." She turned and grabbed my hand. "Come on, sweetie. We're leaving now. It's okay. Forget the scary things he's been telling you." As she quickly brought me out of the house, I remember hearing Grandpa shouting, "Katie didn't die because she was disturbed. It was Coilscrew, goddammit, Helen," my mother's name. "It's for her protection. It'll hunt down any who saw it in their family, and we should all be warned." His incessant shouting waned in nothing as we walked to the car and drove off. Now, there's tons of room for why. If you've never seen Rubber, or at least the opening to Rubber is on YouTube. It's a horror movie. It's a very weird horror movie. There's this opening monologue about why, and how every good story has why in it, a huge, heavy element of why. So, there are some things that you have to accept and just move on from the fact that you're not going to know. But I feel that I need to know why Coilscrew would want to hunt down and kill people. There seems to be no motive to this monster, and nothing that it symbolizes, no greater meaning to it other than it kills. It doesn't seem to make a whole lot of sense. I feel that you could pare this down and not have Coilscrew be some sort of antagonist, but instead just be this pitiful thing that wanted to die and maybe couldn't. That, I think, would be more disturbing than it killed its creator and hunted down Katie and killed her. Let me know what you think. Anyway, I remember not being able to sleep months after that, and we never saw Gramps again. But I did some digging afterwards and found his job had been traveling to various scientific facilities around the globe. Well, okay, that helps out a little bit. Wish we could have gotten a little bit of that information sooner, just a little bit more. I found the institute his friend worked at, whose name turned out to be Colin, and all of his colleagues were killed, but never found. The families had sought truth on the internet, and all concluded that the work had been too secret, and they'd been assassinated in a conspiracy. So now we're kind of rushing through plot, and before, I think it was taking its time a little bit better. I think this is a symptom of the author having a good idea, and then getting bored with the concept and not knowing where to go with it. I encourage you that if you're writing a story, and you're not liking the way it's turning out, force yourself to write it, but don't publish it until you're happy. I don't think this person published this and was happy. I think they rushed to the ending and didn't let it gestate and become what it should be. I don't think that I'm forcing my idea of what the story should be on it either. I think really they're just confused because it's setting up for one thing, and then the twist of it doesn't seem deliberate. Okay. But anyway, conspiracy, yeah. That's not a whole lot of information. If you want to tell me about a conspiracy, you have to connect the dots and put the conspiracy points together and show where your information is lacking. This is how conspiracy theorists work. You can look at any conspiracy theory. They have tons of information, tons of details. Doesn't matter if the conspiracy is true or not. They will have tons of information, and we're getting no information on this conspiracy, and this story's about to wrap up. So, I always wondered why my grandpa had told me that story, and as he was diagnosed bipolar before his death and lived out his last days in a mental institution, I think he made it up as an after effect of losing a friend so close. I don't know, can you get bipolar depression so bad that you get institutionalized? Looking it up, I am wrong. Yes, you can totally go to a psychiatric hospital for bipolar disorder. That's totally a thing. Okay, so I was wrong on that. I think he made it up as an after effect of losing a friend so close. But the idea of being scared, the idea of such a being scared me then, and it still does now. So I thought I'd post it here. Now, time to return to my present life. Oh my god, Fuck, I see the end of the story now, and I think people can guess where this is going. There's paperwork to be filled, and I can hear birds singing. Oh god, I hear that son of a bitch bouncing on my bed. I thought I told him I'd never mess around in my room, and then it cuts off. Fucking Christ. What a terrible ending. Okay. So for such an original monster design, man, I feel that this story is quite a bit of a letdown. I thought this one was going to be promising, or it was promising, and it just didn't deliver in the way that I was hoping. Let me know what you think about this story, but it's time to move on to our sponsor of the day, which is JRPGs. JRPGs, when you want to grind for your generic anime bullshit.